Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Austin FC in the Moving Forward series episode. And after last season, when Austin FC made it to the Western Conference Final and finished in second position, which is something that nobody expected that they were going to finish, and that a lot of people said that they definitely overachieve, and that this season it seems like reality was going to come to them, and they're going to suffer a bit of a regression. However, we did not expect this much regression that they suffered this season. I mean, this year has just been a total nightmare compared to what we saw in previous season. And in many ways, this season kind of almost proven a lot of naysayer that said that Austin kind of got really lucky last season, and last season was kind of fluke. Correct in a big way, and yet you could even say some of the naysayer didn't even predict how big of a downfall this Austin FC has, and especially it's not just the league form that is bad. They have suffered some of the most embarrassing kind of losses you can imagine in other competition too. But overall, they finished with a 10, 9, and 15 record, and they finished with 39 points. They scored 49 goals this season, which is not bad. I mean, 49 goals this year, that's kind of like right in the middle of the pack. The problem is they gave up 55 goals. And we talk about the defense that has been a problem for this team. And really, this has been a problem for this team since day one. I mean, last season it was a little bit better, but that was a lot to do with the fact they had a really good center back in Ruben Gabriel Nelson, and also Brett Stuver was playing very well last season, and this year it feels like he took a little bit of a dip in form. But yeah, they didn't had Ruben Gabrielson. They decided to ship him off in the off season. They tried to get his replacement in Leo Vasanen, but yeah, Leo Vasanen was definitely not like replacement in terms of quality. He didn't really play as well or even anywhere close to what Ruben Gabrielson meant to this back line. And as a result, they shipped 55 goals. And also, not to mention, I haven't even got to the fact that their back line was injured to hell this season. I mean, when you basically have to put Kip Keller as one of your standing back, you know things have gone terribly wrong. For this Austin FC team, and also even when they decided to put Alex Ray in that center back role a couple of times too, because they was just so injured to hell in terms of the back line, and they finished with a goal differential of -9. They finished 12th in the Western Conference, which is probably the biggest drop we've seen in terms of team finish last season compared to this year. I don't think any team has dropped 10 spot in terms of the standings compared to previous season. But that's nothing compared to what we see in terms of competition that Austin FC has participated. Because yeah, this is where if you're an Austin FC fan, you might want to skip a little bit ahead of this video, because I have to unfortunately mention the embarrassment that they had in the group stage of the League Cup. On the group stage where they have two teams that are Mazatlan and FC Juarez, two teams that are supposed to be beatable team and are teams that are not really even considered to be the giants of Liga MX. In fact, they're way being the giants of Liga MX. They're probably two of the easier team for an MLS team to beat, and with the caliber that Austin had, you would assume they would beat both of these teams. Right? Nope. They lost both of those games, and they got eliminated in the group stage of the League Cup in embarrassing fashion. But it's not as embarrassing as losing to Violeta in the CL. I mean, that two-legged affair. I mean, we talk about some of the most embarrassing exit by an MLS team in CCL, and we have seen some embarrassing losses. I think probably one of the ones I can really remember fresh out in my memory was when Toronto FC were eliminated by Taro FC of a Panamanian team, and that TFC team had some really good players. I mean, that team still had Sebastian Jorinko and all the main core that TFC team has had. But this is nothing compared to when Austin FC lose to Violeta against a Haitian team that literally didn't even play in their home ground, and are a team that in their home country has had a bit of a crisis that's going on, and the fact that they were really shorthanded heading into that second leg, because a lot of those players weren't able to grant visa to come to the U.S. to play that second leg. I mean, it was just incredible the fact that Austin weren't able to win the series. I mean, they did try in the second leg, and I know facing a 3-0 deficit is definitely tough, but again, against a team like Austin like that, I mean that you assume they would overcome that free goal deficit. And even if they didn't overcome that free goal deficit, they shouldn't have come to that free goal deficit in the first place. I mean, it's hard to believe that it turns out the winning goal off that Violeta and Austin FC two-legged series was the own goal by Amr Tarek. I mean, that is going to go down as probably the worst own goal I've ever seen in my life, and that is definitely one that I'm not. I think that own goal basically ended the career of Amr Tarek because after that we have never seen him in an Austin FC shirt, and he probably won't be in an Austin FC shirt, especially when they make the end of the season roster. Because yeah, that was just that. If you haven't seen that moment, you should you unless you're an Austin fan, you can maybe want to check out why exactly it's so bad. But if you're an Austin fan, yeah, you don't want to look back at that, and especially um, look back at those two-legged affair against Violetta and that Leeds Cup group stage. That was just absolute disaster for this Austin FC team. Now, their current head coach of this team is Josh Wolf, who is still the only head coach for this Austin FC team. He's been there since 2021. Although, there's been a lot of Austin FC fans that have been wanting Josh Wolf to be fired. In fact, a lot of people are kind of surprised that Josh Wolf kind of lasted. I mean, we had a mass exodus in terms of head coach being fired this season. There's a record amount of head coaches been fired. Yeah, Josh Wolf is not one of them. Even though Josh Wolf was definitely one guy that I think when I did my rankings in terms of head coach that could be fired, which if I look back at that rankings, I think I've at least got 3 or 4 of those head coaches in my top 10 head coach that is in the hot seat. Eventually got themselves canned at the end of the season or even just recently. But I'm kind of surprised that Josh Wolf did lasted this long, and especially there are some good coaching kind of candidate in the coaching market in MLS. You would assume Josh will maybe relieve his duty because of how bad things have gone near the end of the season, but it seems like this Austin team is committed to Joshua. They think that he can do something good, and they think that after the good season that he had in 2022. They maybe use this season as just kind of a pass. This season, kind of like his get out the of jail card, and that next year is probably going to be the year where he might be under pressure if this Austin team does not perform well. And then of course the chief soccer officer is Rodolfo Barrero. Obviously he is going to be be the GM and basically making the moves for the first time this off season. Of course, he just recently came in because as we know about the whole Claudio Reyna and Greg Berhalter situation. Yeah, that basically is another situation that I'm not going to mention too much about that information because we already mentioned a lot, but that has a strong connection to Austin to a point where yeah, Austin had no choice. They had to fire or force Claudio Reyna to resign because of how ugly that situation was getting after the World Cup was finished. Now, in terms of the top goal scorer, you got Sebastian Driussi finished with 11 goals, and that's Driussi even with a down year and a year that he's been very injury prone this season. He still were able to finish double digits goal scorer. Then you got Jersey Zardes with an underwhelming 6 goals, although things did kind of start to pick up for him at least in the middle part of the season. You also have Ethan Finley finished with 5 goals. I mean, it's kind of surprised that Ethan Finley, who was actually one of the better attacker for this Austin FC team, and this is no disrespect to Ethan Finley. As a Minnesota United fan, I will always love Ethan Finley, forever a Loons player there. But when you have Ethan Finley in the year 2023 as your most important attacker, in a team, yeah, there's got to be some question mark that has to be made about this Austin attack. And there definitely was. It was a very underwhelming attack, even though they scored 49 goals this season. Then you have John Gallagher, who had a really decent season with 5 goals. I think John Gallagher has been a very underrated player. I mean, I don't think he's get enough the respect that he's not. He's a very decent player. He's a hard-working player that can also score goals for this Austin team. And then, of course, you got Rigoni actually finished with 5 goals. So, as much as we talk about Rigoni being very snake bitten, he still were able to finish with goals this season. But I'm pretty sure a lot of Austin fans would feel like, yeah, that even though it's not as bad as some people might think that Rigoni did in terms of this season, and we'll even get to the assist chart. He actually did finish in the top 5 too. Your DP player, your player that's supposed to have a good link up relationship with Driussi, should not be finished with just 5 goals this season. In terms of the top assist leader, there you go, John Gallagher again. Not only doing the goal scoring, but also being a good playmaker with 8 assists, followed by Danny Pereira, who I think he also had a really good good season this year. He really made a step up in that central midfield position with 8 assists, followed by Rigoni with 6 assists. Driussi actually only finished with 5 assists this season, and again, part of that has to do with the fact that he kind of had a down year, and also he was on the IR a couple of times, and also Nick Lima ends up with 5 assists this season. You usually don't see Nick Lima being a top assist leader, especially playing that fullback position. I mean, I remember doing his time with the Quakes. He's never known to be a guy that could be lethal as a fullback. But that being said, in terms of the last preseason for this Austin team, because this is going to be their fourth season in MLS coming into 2024. Well, as I mentioned, it was a disappointing 2023 season, finishing 12th with 10, 9 and 15 record and finished with 39 points. But in 2022, it was the complete opposite. It was a miraculous season where they finished second in the standings with 16, 8 and 10 record and finished with 56 points on their route to the Eastern, or not Eastern, Western Conference final. That is, I don't know why I said Eastern Conference final. I was thinking about Nashville for a second there. But anyway, in 2021, they in their inaugural year, they finished in 12th place with a 9-4 and 21 record and finished with 31 points. Obviously, as an expansion team, that's kind of expected for with them finishing pretty low in the standings, and also them kind of had a very expansion like kind of season where a lot of expansion team turns out to struggle, or they kind of struggle in the beginning of the game, but eventually they got better, and that's where they kind of ride the momentum into 2022. Now, in terms of average attendance, 20,738. That's good for 12 in the league. Austin game is always sold out. Though I will say that near the end of the season, we definitely saw more empty seats at Q2 Stadium. And again, keep in mind when they announce attendance wise, this is pay attendance. This is not actually what's in the seat. I can't tell you how much I have to keep repeating that because apparently there are still some people that don't think that they use the attendance as a reason why their club is still have a really great support. I mean, yes, to some extent, when teams have a good attendance number, it can be as an evidence in terms of good support. But now watch how each of their games goes, and how there are going to be empty seats and a bunch of no show. Then yeah, there is definitely a question about those attendance rate. And I think near the end of the season, I think I've saw probably the most empty green seats that I've saw at Q2 Stadium that I've ever seen, compared to the first two years. And I mean, I don't blame Austin fans of deciding not showing up late in the season, because late in the season that was in the midst of them just completely collapse and completely gone to a free fall to a point where they finished so low in the standings. Now, in terms of MVP this season, it's got to be Sebastian Driussi. I mean, a guy that, again, even though he had a down year this year, he is still the linchpin of this team. And again, it's not a big surprise because Austin is one of those teams that rely heavily in terms of their number 10. That's kind of what a lot of teams want to do when it comes to do their most important players. So it's not a big surprise that Dre UC basically wins the MVP award. And again, even in a down year, he still put up a relatively good number. Now, in terms of disappointment, I know a lot of you will say Emmanuel Rigoni or even Jersey Zardes, or even if you want to go in extreme cases, you can say that Kip Keller is a big disappointment. Although, I mean, I get that Kip Keller is a disappointment, but he didn't play a lot of games. It's not like he's a regular star. We knew he's not a good player. And then of course, some might say Armro Tarek because of the own goal that he scored. But again, just like Kip Keller, he doesn't play a lot of minutes. I don't think you can qualify a player that is very disappointing when they're not actually a regular starter. But what is a regular starter is Diego Fagundes, and I'm actually going to pick him mainly because I'm kind of disappointed of how the season has ended up for Diego Fagundes in a year where last year it was definitely an amazing season, and then this year, yes, he did start the season injured, but he just never rediscovered that good form that he had last year. It's just like Diego Fagundes in terms of his form kind of sums up Austin FC season, where last year he was an absolute joy to watch, especially in the wing area, and then this season it has just been nothing but this disappointment to a point where he eventually was sold off to the LA Galaxy. I mean, he looked a little bit better for the Galaxy, but definitely not anywhere close to what we saw last season. I mean, last season, between Fagundes and Driussi, those were the dynamic duo that really drive this Austin FC team on the attack. And see, this season he just have not looked like the Diego Fagundez that we saw last year. We felt that last year he kind of turned the corner and started to live up to the potential that we always know Diego Fagundez could be. Yeah, huge disappointment to see how he went. But again, that's not to discount in terms of my honorable mention of Rigoni being probably one of the bigger disappointment to this team too. But in terms of young player to watch, it was really between Owen Wolf or Daniel Pereira. I decided to go with Owen Wolf. I think this is a popular choice with a lot of players. And although he's not considered to be one of the best young midfielder in the league, he's still a guy that I think has a lot of raw talent and a guy that if he is able to be developed in a good way and start to get even more regular minutes for this Austin team, then you can see this guy could be sold off to somewhere else for a big amount of money. I mean, Austin is not a team that is known to develop some really good players and sell off for a big amount just yet because they just came into the league. But don't be surprised, Owen Wolf might be one of those guys that could do so. But again, honorable mention has to do with Daniel Pereira. He really stepped up this season, especially on the assist chart department. See, not all Super Draft #1 pick turns out to be a huge bust. I mean, I know a lot of people have said that of course is the case. A lot of #1 picks turns out to be huge bust, but not with Danny Pereira. He's actually started to come good for Austin FC, especially this year. Now, let's talk about the good of Austin FC. Well, there was really not a lot of good, you can say. But they won Copa House by default. I mean, that's something that I think Austin fans will use that as a consolation prize. I mean, it's hard to believe that despite how bad this season has been, they still were able to win Copa House by default, and that's with both FC Dallas and Houston having a very good season, especially the Houston Dynamo. I mean, both of those teams had their chances to win the Copa Tijas. They weren't able to do so. I think they got a draw in the last Copa Tijas game, and that because of that draw, Austin basically won it by default, and I think they'll be happy about that. Even though with how bad things have gone this season, I even mentioned how I think when they won that Copa Tijas, it was coming off of a disappointing loss. So I guess yeah, they lose another game, and that basically is a huge damage in terms of their playoff chances, but at least they won Competias again. I mean, that's something. And then, of course, Treyusi still a top 5 #10 despite a down year again. You talk about some of the best #10 in the league, Treyusi has to be in that conversation. And if it wasn't for Hani Mukhtar going nuclear last season, Treyusi would have won the MVP last season. I mean, I think he was like second in vote of MVP last year, only behind Hani Mukhtar, who just simply went nuclear last year. The bad. Yeah, there was a lot of bad for this Austin team. We talked about the League Cup and CCL failure. And then we talk about the free fall after the League Cups is over. I mean, the fact that I think they went winless after the League Cup is over for quite a while. I think like 6 games they went without a win, or I think it's at 7 games something. It was somewhere like that. It was bad. How much of a free fall that they went after the League Cup is over. And again, a lot of that has to do probably due to what happened in the Leagues Cup with that embarrassment that they had against Mazatlan and FC Juarez. Every season we always see a team that when they suffer a devastating loss, it can really hinder a team's season, especially it happened in the tournament. We talked about the New England Revolution having that devastating loss against Pumas in the two-legged affair, and they just never recover and miss out on the playoffs. I would say for this Austin team, it's kind of the same thing, except it's those Leeds Cup loss against Mazatlan again and FC Juarez, a group that they should easily top that group and are clearly the favorites of winning that group. And the fact that they didn't even win that group, but they lost both of those games, yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the free fall and beginning of the end to a point where they just completely fall off the map in terms of competing for playoff position. The back line was bad. Yeah, we mentioned the back line was bad. It was injured to hell and back, and that the fact that again they didn't add a lot of depth in terms of that back line came back to haunt them in a huge way. I mean, I thought that was kind of the concern I had with this Austin team this season. It's kind of been a concern I have with this Austin team ever since they came into the league. They never tend to have a really solid back line, but this season, it definitely it is emphasized tenfold because of the depth chart that they had, and it feels very suspect in terms of the defense that they had heading into this season. I mean, when you have Julio Cascante as one of your most important defender, you know something is gone wrong if you're in your back line. Again, this is no disrespect to Julio Cascante. He's a decent defender, but he should not be your most important the defender and your showpiece to anchor the back line. And that, yeah, he was not great whatsoever. And also, not to mention, he also got injured in the beginning of the season, and that's when we got to the injured to hell and back, where they basically were running out of defenders because of so many players going down with injuries. And then, of course, the underwhelming attack. As I mentioned, a lot of this attack really underachieved this season. But now moving forward for this Austin team, obviously they need to improve the back line. I mean, it's simple as that. They need to improve it to a point where they definitely will be looking for some option to add in some starting quality the back line, especially in the center back position. Improve the attack and get help for Dreyusi. Again, they definitely might be thinking about another number 9. I don't think they're gonna bring back Jarzi Zardes this season. They're probably gonna find a number 9 there, and then also they need to improve the winger position too. They don't really have a lot of good option in the winger position, especially with Diego Fagundes not being there, and also Ethan Finley, although he had a decent year last year, I don't think he's gonna get any better heading into this year. And that again, it just still feel like this team on the attack, it's a one-trick pony. It's Jayusi and basically hope and pray that the attack will work well, and that usually doesn't end up very well. I mean, just as Nashville, how that's going with them relying too heavily on Hani Mukhtar, and how that didn't quite work out near the end of the season for that Nashville team. And then of course, is you gotta ask the question about Josh Wolf in terms of how hot his seat is. His seat probably could be very hot next season because again, it was maybe a little bit surprising that Austin decided not to let go of him, considering with a lot of head coach being fired this season. A lot of people were thinking that Josh Wolf might be one of those. In fact, there was many moments where you could say that if you want to do a rankings of the head coach that could potentially be fired, Josh Wolf was right up there, and yet he's still with the team. But again, we'll see whether or not if this Austin team underachieve again next season. Is he gonna face the chopping block? And then of course, the other thing that they might be looking at is they could potentially free up a DP spot, and in order to do that, they need to buy down either Alex Frayne contract, or they decided to let go of Rigoni, or even decided to do a buyout of his contract, which I don't know if Austin still have an option to do so. But yeah, the sad thing about Rigoni is that they're kind of stuck with him until next season, since his contract is not over until next year, and they're just praying that he's gonna come good, and he doesn't really turns out to be a huge bust, which we're kind of seeing it right now. But besides that, if they can free up Alex Rain contract, maybe buy him down to a TAM contract, they open a DP spot, and that DP spot could definitely be used either to find a DP number 9 or find a DP winger. I think maybe a DP number 9 would be more important. Consider with Dre UC, he's going to be a guy that if you're going to build him as your influencer on the attack, you need him to have another player that can give him service. And why not get a player that can give you service like a number 9 that will do. So yeah, if they do decide to open up DP spot, which I think they're going to do so, that could be a spot that they can be used. Or maybe they decided to go with a young DP player because why not? We have seen teams have been able to try to go for a young DP player, and it turns out to be relatively successful. Austin might be thinking about that approach too. But it's gonna be interesting to see how they do in the off season. There's no doubt that there's gonna be changes that they need to make this off season. I mean, this team just when you look at how this team has been, I don't think they've been a bad team coming into the league. I mean, if you want to reflect in the first preseason, it's been such a roller coaster. But overall, I think this has been kind of an average team, and this year it was kind of unfortunate with some players having underachieved, and them suffering massive collapses that they have. But if they want to get themselves back to where they were in 2022 and want to get themselves back to being a team that could go all the way to MLS Cup and maybe make it back to the Western Conference Final, they absolutely need to improve their squad, and it starts in the back line. They needs to tighten up the back line, and also hope that Brad Stuver, even though Brad Stuver was good at times this season, he's also at times was not good. He was very inconsistent this year. but also they need a back line to approach him. I mean, there was just way too many games this season that they completely hung Brad Stuber out to dry because of a non-existent defense whatsoever. And then you also have to look in the attack too. You need help for Sebastian Driussi. You're trying to avoid the same fate that Nashville is basically putting Hani Mukhtar in, and we'll definitely talk about more when we get to the Nashville video of the moving forward series of how I'll basically reference what I said in this video. Talk about it's the same situation. They need help for their number 10. Their number 10 can't just do everything and hope that they can still be a competitive team, especially heading into the playoffs. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and as always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're an Austin FC fan, what do you think is the MVP disappointment, the young player to watch, the good, the bad, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look next season? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.